Hello, friends. Welcome once again to Dr.RAjeshverma's YouTube channel, and I am with you with new slide, new video, and new topic. You know, by this time by seeing this video, you are well aware that the style of my recording my videos and posting on the YouTube, and you could get my points. If you have any problem or anything else, you can directly write to me through my emails or through my comment box. So without wasting much time, let me start with our today's topic, that is your biological motives. So what are the biological motives? See, it's a very mouth-watering paratha, butter and chutney in front of you with a fresh water. Now you could get my point with these two images. I think you can very well understand what are the biological motives. If you could not, and I think I'll explain. I am here to explain you. So, no, we'll be discussing. You keep on guessing what are the basic minimum, or you can say biological motives. Now let us, without taking much time, let us start. First, we'll talk about the types of motives. Motives are mainly of two types. There's a biological and psychological. Per se, one thing I want to make it very clear it is that there is no fixed boundary that these motives are purely biological, these are psychological motives. No, motives are they for ease of understanding they has been classified, but the motives are per se they are not purely biological as well as psychological. Getting my point? So, for ease of understanding, we are discussing here the motives two types, that is biological as well as psychological. Both the motives are interdependent upon each other, which I told you earlier. It means both biological and psychological factors can trigger both type of motives. Either biological factors can trigger psychological motives, and psychological motives can trigger biological. Psychological motives can trigger biological motives, or various factors that biological factors can onset the psychological motives, or psychological factors can onset the biological motives. So, and vice versa too. Therefore, no motive is absolutely biological or psychological per se, which I already told you. Now, we'll start with biological motives. What are these biological motives? Now that comes the image which I shown you in my first slide, that parathas, mouth-watering parathas and fresh water. So, you have to wait for some more time to disclose what are the biological motives. Little bit of introduction here. See, biological motives are also known as physiological motives because they are based upon the physiological systems of the body. What are these physiological systems? Uh, these physiological systems are caused by the various biological factors. That is your hormone structure, neurotransmitters, brain structure, etc., and your needs and homeostasis, etc., etc. And these motives are the result of disturbance of homeostasis. What is homeostasis? I told you in previous video, the tendency towards a relatively stable equilibrium between interdependent elements, especially as maintained by the physiological processes. See, in simple words, homeostasis means a type of balance that has to be maintained by the human body to survive or to adapt to the environment. That is the only thing. Suppose you are feeling hungry. At that time, your homeostasis means your physiological balance has got disturbed. To maintain that balance, you need some energy that can fulfill your needs. So the moment you get your energy requirement fulfilled, in that case, your balance is restored. So that means you are tend to maintaining your homeostasis. So that is your homeostasis means the tendency towards a relatively stable equilibrium between interdependent elements, especially as maintained by the physiological processes. So, different. This was your homeostasis, and biological motives are assumed to be responsible for the human behavior. This approach explains behavior in terms of needs that led to derive to goal-directed behavior and consequently reducing the drive. See, when you require a need, there is a need in you, there is a biological need. In that case, there is a disturbance in your equilibrium, as I told you, and To maintain that equilibrium or to restore that equilibrium, we need to have some drive in us. So you are hungry, you will search for the food. For that food, uh, you have to little bit of work, physiological work you have to perform, or you have to search for your kitchen or your some refrigerator and all. This is a process you call as there's a drive in you. That drive has initiated a process that is known as a goal directed behavior. Suppose you are hungry, you need not to go to your books or you go to your two wheeler or your car for to satisfy your that need. No, because you have certain goal in your mind. The goal is to search for the food because you have to satisfy your that need. So that is known as your goal directed behavior. The moment you receive your food and you just start bulging out in or you are start eating on it, the moment it enters in your body, the reduction in your drive starts. So this is a approach which explains the behavior in terms of these motives. The earliest explanation of motivation relied on the concept of instincts. Earlier they say that instincts are the responsible for our human behavior, and instincts are the inborn. What are the instincts? They are the inborn patterns of behavior that are biologically determined rather than learned. For example, curiosity, flight, parental cares, etc., etc. So, what the instinct means? The abilities or capacities that you have received from your parents means they're biologically. You didn't learn that. You can see in this example, this duck. This is a pair of duck. They are escorting their babies. So this they don't have to learn that. That is their instinct. Getting my point? So flight, the birds, the moment they born, after the few weeks, they start flying. That is their instinct, but that thing they have not learned. That come naturally to them. So this is their instinct. So this theory, this concept explains that motivation or the motives are on the basis of instincts. So now, what are the biological motives we'll be discussing here? And instincts is an impetus which derives the individual to do something to reduce that impetus. That is your, you can say, your derive. So now the point here, what are the major biological motives? These are the three: hunger, thirst, and sex. So these motives are not learned. Neither these motives we learn by modification of behavior or we learn from observation and all. These are instincts which we receive with as a gift from our parents the moment we born. But the third motive, that is sex, it develops with age. It is not so. We'll not focus right now on this year. We'll be discussing this whenever its turn comes. So let us describe each motive in a little bit of detail. So first we'll be talking about the most necessary and most interesting motive. We call it as a hunger. You know, hunger is a physiological need, or you call it a biological need, and it is caused by various externals as well as internal factors. Yes, you are right. You are right. Means that hunger can be caused, though various internal factors are responsible for causing the hunger. Various external factors too initiate hunger in you. So, first point is stomach contraction. Some researchers say that the moment your stomach is empty, they start contracting, and that lead to the hunger motive. There are certain evidence that low concentration of glucose level in bloodstream, the moment the glucose level falls down, there's a process of hunger starts in your body. Then there are another research indicates that the low level of proteins, the moment the protein level goes down in your body, we start feeling the requirement of hunger. The same is the case with the fats, which are stored in our body. The moment the level of the storage of the fat goes down, that hunger also we start feeling hunger pangs in our body. Then comes the one another concept or that research says that there is a secretion of insulin and glucagon by the pancreas. The pancreas, the glands, when they start secreting the insulin and the glucagon, we start feeling the hunger. See, these are the various factors that causes hunger. One more thing, not a single factor is possible for the hunger, and not all at a time. So various factors they interact together, combine together, and leads to the that biological motive. Most important one we call it as a hunger. One more, few more factors, that is metabolic function of your liver. This is also responsible for the hunger. Time of the day. It's a very interesting phenomena. That is convention of eating. There is in various across the world, various cultures they practice various norms in manifesting their eating behavior. Sometimes, suppose, if you talk about the India, we have earlier that the system was of eating twice a day. Now it has been shifted to thrice a day. So the moment you suppose you had your breakfast at 9 o'clock, at almost 2 o'clock you start feeling that it's time to eat. No, it's you have observed my point that it's time to eat. You are not feeling hunger, but still you say it's time to eat. This is the time of the day. This is also a very important function, and this is outside. This is external factor which I told you earlier that internal as well as external factors are responsible for the hunger. Then comes the sensory appeal. It's a very interesting phenomena too. This is also external factor. Sight, smell, and taste. Suppose you just had your breakfast and you just had a smell of freshly cooking of rotis or parathas or somewhere. You start feeling a little bit of hunger or smell or the taste of something or sight. Suppose you are moving to the market and someone is preparing a crispy jalebis. So that time, suppose your stomach is full, but sight of that crispy jalebis and a little bit of cold outside, you feel to have, you would like to have that the jalebi should, we should purchase something that, and that is also lead to the hunger. That is known as sensory appeal, sight, smell, and taste. Then there are cultural factors also which lead to hunger or that lead to the biological motive. Stress. This is a very interesting thing. The stress also sometimes stressful people they engage in eating disorders. Sometimes a binge eating, or they stop eating at all. So the stress is also an important factor that leads to the hunger. And finally, gender also. This various studies has proved that gender is very important factor that leads to the biological motive we known as hunger. Such girls is to are likely to eat more and with more frequency, whereas the gents or the boys or male people they tend to eat larger at one time, but the intensity of eating or frequency of eating is little bit relatively lesser than. Few studies has proved this, but it is not absolute, but it is very important factor in the hunger. So let us discuss the bodily functions of hunger. How that hunger? These are the little bit. These are the causes that leads to hunger. So when we feel hunger, what actual goes inside our body? We'll be discussing this important point here. The research indicate that hypothalamus, that yellow part, see you can see here the yellow part inside your brain, almost center of your brain, is a small brain organ. We call it as a small brain function or brain part, hypothalamus. That liver and other body organs along the external signals regulate hunger and satiety systems. There are 2 points here: regulation of your hunger and satiety systems. So we'll be discussing a little bit in detail. The change in the metabolic functions of the liver result in the feeling of hunger. Means the moment our liver undergoes a change in the metabolic functions, that times we start feeling hunger. The liver sends signals to the hypothalamus. That signal travels from the liver to the your brain and to your hypothalamus. The hypothalamus has two important regions. That is lateral hypothalamus and ventromedial hypothalamus. We call it LH and VMH. Now be very careful here and to understand the concept behind that. The lateral hypothalamus, that is considered to be the excitatory area. Excitatory area means that excites your hunger motive. Lateral. Animals eat when this area is stimulated and stops eating and die of starvation when it is damaged. So there was a various experiment has been done. The lateral hypothalamus or lateral area of the hypothalamus has been artificially stimulated. The moment that area was stimulated, though the animal was full with the stomach, there was no requirement of hunger. But the moment that LH was stimulated through the artificial means, the animals start eating immediately. And there was another experiment. There's a host of experiments done to prove this hypothesis. That ventromedial, that is lateral hypothalamus is responsible for the hunger. In some animals that LH was surgically or removed. In that case, animal never ate. They died of starvation but never ate because it excites the biological motive of hunger in you. But the moment it has been removed, there is no excitatory area to stimulate the hunger. So these studies have proved that lateral hypothalamus is responsible for the excitation of the hunger motive. Then comes the VMH. That is ventromedial hypothalamus, dear friends. It's just opposite to that lateral hypothalamus. It is just located in the hypothalamus, middle of the hypothalamus. That's why it is known as ventromedial hypothalamus. And this is known as satiety center, or the inhibits the hunger drive, or it's a hunger controlling area. The same experiment has been done. That VMH has been, we'll be discussing in the next slide. The same thing. The VMH in various animals had been removed, and the animal never stop eating. They died of overeating. They become so obese, but just keep on eating because the satiety center or the controlling center was absent from that. And various experiment also done that the animal was little bit kept hungry for 2 3 days. They was not fed anything. In that case, the moment that VMH was artificially stimulated, the animal uh, started stop eating the food. So that is means that satiety center, or it has been proved by the various uh, experiments. The next comes are thirst. I am thirsty. You may be also thirsty. What makes me feel like that way? Or is it sight of water, mouth watering juice? Something somewhere responsible for the thirst. No, you cannot feel thirsty, or you can feel thirsty by seeing the water or seeing some beautiful or colorful juice. You can, but the basic reason behind the thirst is there is a motivation that is triggered by the your body. So what is that? The loss of water from cells and reduction of blood volume is responsible for the thirst. It has been found that when the blood volume reduced, that time there is a requirement or the need of the water to go inside your body, so that the blood volume restored to its normal position. When water is lost by the bodily fluids, by you can say perspiration or the urine, that time water leaves the interior of the cells. Okay, the interiors of the cell is derived of the water, and the interior hypothalamus contains nerve cells called osmoreceptors, which generate nerve impulse in case of cell dehydration. So when water leaves the interior parts of the cell, that process we call it as a cell dehydration. That message is transported out to the hypothalamus. That is anterior hypothalamus. That hypothalamus in that case, it has some osmoreceptors. It receives that signal and interprets that there is a deficiency of water in the interior of the cells. That generates nerve impulses, and that nerve impulses initiate a process we generally call as a thirst. So, in this case, dear friends, these nerve impulses act as signal for the thirst and drinking. When thirst is regulated by loss of water from the osmoreceptors, it is called cellular dehydration thirst. Means when the water leaves the interior of the cells, that message reaches to hypothalamus. Thalamus generates signals, and that time we need to drink water. Such type of thirst that is regulated by the loss of water from the osmoreceptors is known as cellular dehydration thirst. But what mechanism stops drinking of water? Now we know that thirst is regulated by the anterior of hypothalamus, that is osmoreceptors. But there should be something that stops us to drinking water. Some researchers assume that the mechanism which explains the intake of water is also responsible for stopping of intake of water. But there is no concrete proof till date that what are the mechanisms responsible for the regulation of the stop of the thirst. But some researchers believe that the osmoreceptors, which are responsible for the stimulation of thirst, also responsible for the stoppage of the RO that inhibits the drinking behavior. Others have pointed out that the role of stimuli resulting from the intake of water in the stomach must have something to do with the stopping of drinking water. Some other people, there's other point of view that the moment that water goes inside your stomach and the required quantity, after the required quantity of water reaches to your stomach, the stomach sends signals and that signals reaches to your hypothalamus or brain areas and we stop taking the water. But there is something in us that regulate our thirst as well as inhibit our thirst. And the third biological motive, my dear friend, is sex. So sexual is a biological requirement, but there is I told you in first slide, there is a little bit of difference between the two motives, hunger and thirst, and these sexual activities. So one of the important point regarding this motive is it's a very powerful drive found in animals and human beings, but it is a fundamentally differ from hunger and thirst in various ways. Both all three are biological motives, but this is different from the hunger and thirst. First, it is not necessary for survival. Suppose that required desire or need or that motive is not fulfilled, then it doesn't mean that the animal will die. But first point is it is not necessary for survival. But other two motives, that is hunger and thirst, they are very much required for the survival. The second point is that is which this motive differ from other two is homeostasis is not the objective of sexual activity, which is the attempt of the organism to restore the equilibrium. This is not the motive. The motive is regeneration or reproduction. So the third difference between the sex motive and the hunger and thirst is the sex drive develops with age, whereas the hunger and thirst are the moment we born, we have that motive in us. But that this is the third motive, that is of sexual activity, that develops with the age, not with the or not the innate motive. So there are two type of factors responsible for the engage in sexual activity, or the motivation to engage in sexual activity is regulated by the internal and external factors. What are the internal factors? In human beings, the sex drive is closely regulated biologically. Physiology suggests that intensity of sexual urge is dependent upon release of the sex hormones. Studies suggest that the sex hormones secreted by gonads, that is testes in males and the ovaries in females, that is adrenal and pituitary glands, are responsible for sexual motivation. Means there are the three glands important, that is gonads, adrenal and pituitary. They secrete the various hormones and that are the responsible for the sexual activity or sex motive. So this is your internal factors responsible for the third biological motive, you call it as a sex. And the important factor, that is second one, is external factors. Sexual drive in human beings is primarily, suppose this drive specifically you are talking about human beings, not in animals, or maybe in animals too. But here I am just talking about the human being, that is primarily stimulated by the external stimuli such as the erotic images, videos, and its expression depends upon cultural learnings. See, culture and society, that's also plays very important role in regulating the sex drive. But the images or the videos of that erotic images may initiate the this motive in human beings, but how to express that, that is not the in the domain of the that individual. That has to be regulated by your cultural settings and social learnings. So dear friends, these were the three type of basic biological motives. Apart from these three motives, few more are described below. Now let us just read out one by one. Need of intake of oxygen. See, this is also motive. To survive, we need to take oxygen. Then comes need of sleep, to refresh our body, to restore our body, to repair our body. We need to take an adequate amount of sleep, and that is also one of our motive. Need to maintain optimal body temperature. So to survive and to adapt to the external environment, we need to regulate our body temperature so that we can remain healthy and survive. This is also very important motive. Then come for these also biological motives. Then come the fourth one is need for seeking pleasure and avoidance of pain. So this motives comes under the domain of psychobiological motive. It can also be psychological as well as biological. We always seek pleasure and always avoid pain. Last we'll discuss is the need for elimination of waste from the body. See, excretory motive. We need after few duration, depending upon our food intake and liquid intake, we need to eliminate certain waste from our body. That is also very important biological motive, and that is also regulated by your biological systems. So dear friends, this video contains this much only, that is biological motives. And a quick recap: biological motives. What are the motives? I told you earlier that biological motives generally have three types: hunger, thirst, and sex. So first two part, hunger and thirst, are the very important biological motives. Though the third one also is important, but these two motives are innate, and they are very much survival for the your very much survival for your in this environment. But these motives, there are hypothalamus areas in the which is located in the brain that are responsible for the regulation of these motives. Satiation centers and excitatory centers also, that is lateral hypothalamus and the ventromedial hypothalamus. Similar the case with the thirst, there is osmoreceptors that are responsible for the regulation of your thirst. The third motive came the sex, that comes with the age, and various internal as well as external factors that are responsible for the sexual drive in human beings. And finally, lot of people, research studies say that the secret of hormones by the glands such as gonads, adrenaline, and pituitary glands, they remove secret various hormones that are responsible for the your sex drive in human beings. There are external factors also, but that drive in, that due to the external factors we cannot be expressed as freely, but that has to be regulated by your culture. Apart from these, there are various other biological motives: need for sleep, need of take of oxygen, need of removing the excretory systems, or other various biological motives. So dear friends, these are my references. We end our video here. You can cross check them, or to study for the to study deeper you can refer to them. Our next video will be very interesting video, and that is psychological motives, what forces us to behave as we behave. We'll be discussing that thing in your next video. By the time, thanks for watching this video. If you want to have, if you like this video, you can share with your friends. But if you dislike it, share with me why you dislike it. Please do not hesitate to write me. But where you write, you can write. Uh, you can write on my comment box, as well as you can write my email, that is varmasujit@yahoo.com. Once again, thank you dear friends watching this video.